welcome to this edition of EMS Now Up Close. I'm Eric Miskell with EMS Now, and today I get to visit again with Freedom, a distributor based out of Florida, a global distributor. I have today both John McKay, President of Sales, and John Magee, Vice President of Sales. Thank you for, I never know whether to say left or right or how it appears on the screen, so thank you for acknowledging there. Let's begin by giving people an overview of Freedom, your location, your reach, what you cover, your business model. So you jump right in on that.
All right. Yeah, so we're based out of Tampa, Florida area. Global presence. We have office in Asia region. We have office in European region, and we just expanded our footprint here in Florida. Added another almost 20,000 square foot of warehousing that we're going live with really in October here. It's been under renovation since part of last year. All with the position to really kind of grow our presence in the market and service more customers. Freedom in general been in business since 1999, and a lot of what we're hoping to do is we want to expand to service more customers, right? So we're actively adding salespeople. We've hired almost 15 new sales reps this year. Onboarding them, telling them or showing them how we do things so that we can service more customers. Freedom in general really believes in a real personal touch when it comes to servicing customers, and we get a lot of positive feedback from customers. That they get to consistently talk to the same inside person over the phone, via email, and they really feel that we're making an effort to provide quality service.
And talk about the certifications that you have as well, because you have.
Yeah, so Freedom fully ISO certified, right? So we probably about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, we got AS 9120, which is the distribution aerospace spec. Recently, we're really proud of, we just got ISO 13485 for medical devices. Companies like us, some of our competitors, I think we're the first company to move forward with that. We've really carved out a nice niche in the medical market, so it just gives that customer base more confidence that we have all the processes in place to support their business. And really help them, grow and service their customers as well. And we're currently working on additional certifications, including DLA, so we'll be fully government certified before the end of the year.
And military has 6081.
Yeah, it's 6081, right, from a military, quality standpoint there as well. So, what we believe in is continuing to kind of challenge our quality system to make sure it can service a variety of sectors. And, we want to show customers that we're doing the diligence to be the kind of supplier they expect us to be.
Yeah, and that's a good point there with the concern about especially counterfeit components getting into the supply base. You hear stories occasionally about those types of things. So I speak to the quality programs that you have in the inspection.
What you do with that? Go ahead. You go. All right, we're all being shy here. Yeah, so the reality is that it is a big concern, and it should be, for customers. What I would tell you is that the biggest issue we see is that companies do what they say they don't do, and that is they don't really do the diligence sometimes on the partners that they're going to work with. We've seen customers over the last couple of years, when product was very tight. Really take some risks and chances, Googling, to find components, not really going to visit the vendors and understand their certifications. And unfortunately, when that happens, there's, somebody's going to get burnt, and some of it can be very high profile. There's no guarantees that, that you'll never have a part that is even substandard. Forget the word counterfeit for a second. Just say it happens to not solder well, as an example, right? Or the factory, they still have PPMs on parts, right? So, if you ship 1 million pieces, 2 of them could be dead on arrival. So, you still have to be able to have the quality processes to manage that, to save the documentation for customers, right, for as long as they need. They may have product out in the field for years and years, right? We need to be able to show the legacy of the components and all those things. So, our process has proven to be very robust in that area. And some of it really comes down to managing our supply chain really effectively. It's not only who you buy from, it's who you don't buy from is really the tagline. And again, John and I have both seen customers who say they never do certain things when revenue's at stake. Sometimes they take a few risks that maybe they shouldn't. And, parts get into the supply chain that shouldn't. And right, that's a problem for all of us.
Excellent. Thank you. And one of the issues, and you've kind of alluded to it, is your value proposition there. What is that value proposition? Especially, you're competing with the large franchise distributors as well, right? So what is your value proposition in that sense?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Art. It's interesting, right? The top handful of franchise distributors in the world, right? You're talking about, $200 billion, some sort of top level number like that, right? So in some cases, people might not think that we compete with them, but we do, because that's where a lot of the transactions exist today. So we're working with customers who are either, maybe we have a more personalized service touch, or maybe they feel a little left behind by some of those large enterprises, right? Where they don't get inventory support, they don't have a consistent person to talk to, those sort of things. And frankly, over the last year, a major shift in the way that a lot of those companies approach the customers, right? They started instituting a lot more non-cancelable, non-returnables in the marketplace. There was a lot of concern by the factories that double ordering was going on, during the COVID years. And they started being very aggressive with that. And, I visited a dozen customers in the Midwest last week. And the common theme is that, they're being quoted deliveries for March and April next year, being asked to sign an NCNR, and then parts are coming available in 3 or 4 weeks, and they're shipping the parts directly to the customer. So, we're finding customers that are starting to have working capital issues because of it. It's not excess as in obsolete excess, but, they may have a year's worth of inventory on some of their core components, because they had to buy what they had to, in other sources. And they wanted to be back in, quote unquote, the standard supply chain. But the reality is that the standard supply chain isn't scheduling that material. They're basically shipping it when it shows up. So part of our value proposition, right? We're a privately held company. We really thrive on trying to be flexible with customers. And a big piece of it is, if we told you that the parts are going to be due in March and you gave us that order, and the parts showed up, we would reach out and say, hey, they're here now. Do you need them now? If not, we're going to still schedule them for March. We want to have that ability to do it. And it seems like our large competitors are not doing that these days. They're forcing, inventory on the customers, and it's really creating a variety of other issues, that it's going to shake itself out, I think, throughout 2024. So, the value prop, where there used to be this huge divide between franchise and, independent distribution, I think it's not there anymore. If you're a quality, business like us, who really is trying to provide services for customers, I think there's hardly a gap there at all. And it's really just about, being engaged enough to understand their needs and, where can we help? And again, we have this really innate, want to do flexible things for them. Deferring the cost of ownership, right, from a financial standpoint is huge. And really just the flexibility of even having the inventory physically in a stocking position. So if they do need it sooner, or if they do need to push it out, by a couple months, we have the ability to do those things. And it's really proving itself to provide a lot of value.
And we're also, we're trying not to, make everything NCNR. A lot of the negative feedback I think that we get is, they're like, hey, we hate signing these NCNRs. And we put those in place, not necessarily to hurt the customer, but to protect us, because if the standard cost is $10, I'm quoting you 90, I can't get stuck with those parts, right? So we're not an insurance company. But if it's a 40-week lead time part and it's a $10 part, we're not going to hit you with NCNR. We're going to try to be flexible, let you push, pull to, accommodate your schedule. And the franchise distributors, in most cases, aren't doing that. And most of the conversations we're having with customers right now are saying, hey, I need net 120 terms. And I'm like, why? We're in the middle of allocation. Why should I give you those type of terms? Like, because we don't have any working capital right now. Manufacturers are forcing us to take parts that we didn't think we were going to get, and we're stuck. And that's what's really caused the slow moving inventory. It's not that there's no demand, there's just too much product at the time. And so we're going to have to wait for some time for that to kind of catch up.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that when I did the tour of the EMS in Europe here earlier this year, visit with 20 of them. And the inventory overhang is choking some of these companies, right? It's upwards of, I think the average in Europe was around 30% of revenue being held, goes as high as 50%, which, inhibits their ability to do other necessary investments, expansion, equipment, those types of things, right? And they're just sitting around waiting for those kind of golden screws to come in so they can kind of flush some of it out. And the NCNR is something that people are super sensitive to, as you know. So
they are, and it's really become the kind of issue where the customers are confused. They don't know what the lead times are anymore, right? Because they're still being quoted fairly lengthy lead time, 30, 40 weeks, yet inventory showing up in a month, 6 weeks. And I think, not to be cynical, a lot of the factories want to see that long-term visibility from their customers, right? If you can get a forecast for half a year, 3/4 of a year from your customers, right, that's good for your business. But at the same point, I think the customers are struggling with, well, am I placing an order for delivery in April, or am I being told I got to take it no matter what? And in the short term, it seems like they're being, the parts are showing up and they're having to take them and, deal with the invoicing that comes with that and everything. So yeah, it's definitely upset the apple cart a little bit.
Yeah. We've touched on a variety of issues there. Let me kind of step back and just ask, how do you assess the current state of the market, for material supply chain? Is it improving? Is it slowing? How do you characterize it? What are you seeing?
That should be you.
I think, I think the problem is there's still long lead times on a lot of different product. And, I don't think you're going to ever see, 12 to 16 week lead times for a while. I think the manufacturers like keeping the lead times out there because they have better understanding of the true demand. But customers are still building, but they can't get certain parts, as you referred to the golden screw. So they're kind of waiting for that one part to come in. I think that, one of the large franchise distributors that was just acquired has been treading water for a long time, not buying any inventory. So they weren't really a viable source for a lot of customers. So a lot of customers are going out trying to find inventory that's just not available anywhere on the planet anymore. So a lot of people are kind of sitting back waiting for the lead times to catch up. But the demand's still strong. I mean, if you look in every sector, from automotive, to, you mentioned AI and sensor technology and so forth, people are still building, but they are sitting on way too much working capital that is doing nothing for them. And you were talking about carrying inventory. I mean, we're talking to customers that got 200 days worth of inventory, and that's unheard of.
Oh my God, that is. So on the supply side, is that improving? Do they see? You mentioned the demand is still strong. How are the component manufacturers? Do you see supply increasing and improving?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're seeing, for sure. And that's one of the problems too, because a lot of the customers that do have slow moving or sludge inventory, they paid at the top of the market after 2 or 3 price increases from the manufacturer. So they may have paid $5 for that part in the open market. And now all of a sudden a franchise distributor is sitting on 60,000 pieces at $1 cheaper. So that's causing a bit of, disruption too, because nobody's moving the product.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Exactly right. So how is that then? Is it in particular pockets, or are there certain parts of the supply chain that are performing better than others? Obviously, the chips are the ones, the semiconductors, the things, right? The active parts get all the attention, obviously. But how do you view that?
Yeah, it's been interesting. It does get all the attention. We've seen an increase in requirements for passive products of late. Connectors have been in and out of trouble. All the big named, brands there, Molex, Phoenix, TE, they've all had, they fixed it. It's gotten worse again, right? So we're seeing those other commodities be affected as well. Nothing that I would say is like, catastrophic year, 52-week lead time, but definitely we went through a strong push of, where semiconductors dominated some of our activity. The last 5 to 6 months, I've definitely seen the other commodities come back into the fray where we're seeing more daily activity for connectors and caps and resistors and those types of products.
Okay, that's good. Now, actually, I was just thinking, you had mentioned at the beginning that you've recently hired salespeople. One of the big issues around the globe, it seems to be, is labor force. How was it finding people for you? How was that sourcing?
Yeah.
So, John and I, we've done, so many Zoom calls over the past few years, talking to different customers. And, our biggest problem was we were too small to support our, the growth in the industry. And, trying to hire people because of COVID and, people want to work from home and, different restraints that we had. So one of the things that we've decided is we want to scale what we do better. So we've hired in-house recruiting, in-house HR. We bought a new building, moved our warehouse to that building with our test facility, blew up the whole warehouse into additional sales, force. So right now we're hiring as fast as we can find people. We've got the account base. We are, probably trying to work on leadership so that we're making sure we hire people and train them and give them the best opportunity to succeed. But it's definitely we were too small to support the demand we had, and so we're very cautious on what customers we sold to make sure we protected our working capital. But now we are seeing a shift where people are coming back to work. We offer a really competitive salary. We do training, vacation, 401k, et cetera. I don't want to give you the commercial, but it's getting better now, since COVID's kind of eased up, and it seems like people are starting to come back into the workforce.
Yeah, I would add to it as well, Eric. Right, we've been on the trail very aggressively all this year in terms of adding staff, and I would say over the last 6 months, it seems like we're getting a better quality candidate. I think some of that comes down to our in-house recruiters really doing a nice job of, getting our name out there and getting positive reviews, from people that are on board and have come into the business. So I see us being a pretty desirable place to work. And, we're very open to people that maybe have sold in other professions, right, who want a career change. Florida is still a destination, so we get people moving from other parts of the country. And the area where the office is just a little north of here, seems to be a landing spot for a lot of people. So we get, pretty interesting melting pot, and it only seems like it's getting better of late is the shorter version of that. So we're pretty excited and bullish. We just had another group of 6 start just this week. We already have some teams set up to start in January. So we're continuing to chase it so that we can service the customers in the market.
And just to be clear too, John McKay, when you said that you were too small to serve it, you meant as far as the team was too small from a human side.
Yeah, I mean, we're growing $100 million year over year, and it was, John and I like to, talk about our sweet spot was really the mid-tier customer. And all of a sudden we had these name brands coming in saying, hey, we want to engage with you. We want to do bonded inventory programs to protect a surety of supply chain. And they were basically saying, okay, we're going to do the contract manufacturer's job. We want you to hold all this inventory. We want them to deplete the market, and then we're going to have you start selling to them or shipping to them. So, but we weren't prepared for how fast the industry grew from every area. I mean, we moved quickly. I, take my hat off to John and our CFO on ability to manage the working capital and deal with customers and explain the need even to pay in advance for some of these parts, because we wanted to, protect our regular customers with these new customers that came in, because, they're probably not going to be here after the market shifts. So we want to make sure we protect our core base. But we know that, we've got a long way to go, meaning up, but we have to have the right personnel. We just don't want to throw people at the job. We want to make sure they're trained correctly and, can, represent Freedom accordingly.
Yeah, and I think the good news is, right, we've always been a company that's tried to promote from within. So we were able to take one of our sales managers, promote him to director, and he has been driving our training program. very consistent way of onboarding. Just been a general improvement for us. And I think it's helping our retention rates, right? And people really feel engaged, because they're getting daily training and then go and try to apply it and, work with customers very early in the process. So, we're always trying to improve it, but I think we're definitely in a better spot than we were, a couple of years ago, because we've tried to take the steps to really make that a priority.
And when we were talking before we started the interview about the AI and we fed it a bit, your comment was that you're less so on the tools, more so on the human interaction, make sure it's still kind of a personal business and having those relationships. So you see that as really as a strong part of your value proposition as well.
I really do. Again, I visit customers pretty regularly and just saw a bunch last week. I said almost a dozen. We get high marks all the time, right? For our customer service, for our responsiveness. And I get it. AI can drive some of that too. And at some point we'll have that in our business as well. But I think for now, we still can scale the human element better and really get a lot of positive responses from the customer base. People at the end of the day still buy from who they like and who they trust, right? John and I hit that saying all the time. And it's when you get out and see people, again, there's still buyers there. They're trying to figure out how to do their job, who can they work with to make it easier, to make it go smoother. And when you really have that real personal customer service, flexible touch, we just think it's a winning recipe. So we're going to stay there for a while we bolt on some of the AI stuff over time.
Yeah. It's interesting. When I was again during the European trip earlier this year, many of these EMS commented about on the technology that they really, the importance of their purchasing people, not so much the tools. They said, these are the people who have the experience. These are the people who have the relationships. And when things get tough, they know how to negotiate and leverage, right? And they figure that can happen better than a tool can necessarily do it. So,
it's interesting. We had some customers, some very large OEMs that maybe found us a little faster because of the market the last couple of years. And what we found is some of them really appreciated that, came and visited us early in the process. They wanted to know who they were dealing with, not just from a quality audit standpoint, but look us in the eye and say, hey, we're a business that's having some troubles. We need help. And, what can you do? What are the services you provide? And we're really open to brainstorming, and John and I would go visit the sites and try to talk to their teams about what worked for them, and how could we bolt on to, again, what were they trying to do, not just the way Freedom wanted to sell to them, but really what did they want to buy from us, and how could we support that effort? So it's a nuanced thing there, but I think for us it's really important that if you understand what they're really looking to do. Again, we're not as big as some of the big franchise guys out there, but we can really provide a lot of services. We have enough size in our business to do that. And when you're listening to what they really care about, right, it's a good recipe.
Yep. Hey, and as we just started fourth quarter here, right, end of the year, people are, what's your crystal ball say? How do you think this is going to play out the rest of the year?
Well, it's funny. I've been traveling a lot too, seeing some customers, and you were talking about why do people come to you? And even during allocation, customers would call. They'd be screened 5 times through our admins, and all of a sudden I'd grab the phone, and I'm on the phone. They're like, "Hey, I was trying to get a hold of you. I used to deal with you in sales back in 2003 or 2008, and we're looking for this part." So we've got these relationship with the customers, and invariably every single one of them says the same thing. It's probably going to take about a year to catch up, meaning bleed off this inventory and start re-engaging. I think we're going to see it stable like this market. So probably sometime in Q2 next year, and I think you're going to start to see it ramping up. Almost everybody I talk to says the demand's still strong, and if the demand's strong, then we're good. And so I really think you're going to see almost not a repeat of last year, but you're going to see another strong 25.
Yeah. That's the message I'm hearing too, is that a lot of customers are kind of leapfrogging 24 as a year that'll be a cleanup year, right? In 25, they're really expecting some good things. I think everybody's super nervous, Eric, about the pendulum swing, right? they lean manufacturing was pre-COVID. Everybody was like, oh, that created a huge problem, Greg, because there was no inventory in the channel. And now there's a ton of inventory, and it's going to force a lot of customers to sit on the sideline and try to, eat that inventory down. And they may get caught, right? Because I don't think we'll have wholesale delivery issues like we've had the last couple of years. But I think it'll be situation either by commodity or series of parts where all of a sudden they're going to go to rebuy and they're going to think it's 20 weeks and it's 48 weeks, right? So I think there's going to be smattering of that over the next, I'll call it 5 quarters, right? The end of this year and through 2024. I'm also expecting a little bit of a bump here at the end of the year, just because, hey, companies are still trying to make revenue for Q4. A lot of companies, that's still a big push. We're really reaching out to customers now, right? Trying to get ahead of it to see if we can, maybe participate a little bit more aggressively, and maybe even not only help them with inventory, but maybe, now we're in a position where the costs have come back down a little bit and we can, compete and give them some cost savings along the way, right? So we're hoping, knock on wood, that's going to happen here in Q4, but it's going to be uneven for sure for the next, 3-4 quarters.
Okay. I appreciate that. That's it's good insight, and I think our audience appreciates that as well. I just want to say in closing, you guys, it's been too long since we talked. I love your insight. You're touching the market and what you're able to share. It's a great perspective, and so hopefully we can do this a little more frequently in the next year because it's excellent.
No, that's great. We really appreciate the opportunity. For a company like us who continue, we're trying to grow. We're expanding, our footprint, our people, all that good stuff, right? It's a really good platform for us to kind of get the word out a little bit. And even, some of the pre-chatter we had, right, talking about your perspective as you get out and touch a lot of customers as well. So
actually, I think I'm going to interview you because it seems like you have more experience at this than we do.
Oh Lord, no, I don't. No, I don't. Like, hey, John, I'm like you. I'm just a pretty face on these things, right?
Nice.
With this John, right?
You, John, right? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear. Yeah.
I know who's the president. Listen, guys, this is excellent. Appreciate it very much, but definitely let's do this a little more frequently. Appreciate the updates.
All right.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.